I know people are wondering what this pandemic will mean for their jobs in the long run and what the impact has been on our economy and on our path forward. We hear that, and we want to make sure that you have the best information possible. So today, I can announce that in the House of Commons on July 8th, our government will be releasing an economic and fiscal snapshot. This will give Canadians a picture of where our economy is right now, how our response compares to that of other countries, and what we can expect for the months to come.
3 weeks from today, the Feds say that they will reveal the current state of the government's finances, how it compares to other countries, and what the picture looks like several months from now. Now, the Prime Minister says it won't be a traditional economic update. It'll just be a snapshot. So what exactly does that mean? Let's bring in the Finance Minister, Bill Morneau. Hi, Minister Morneau. Good to see you again.
It's good to be on your show.
Minister, just a week ago, the Prime Minister said a fiscal update would be a, quote, exercise in invention and imagination. What changed?
Well, really, nothing's changed, Vashi. I think what the Prime Minister was saying last week, and what I've been talking about really now for a couple of months, is the real challenge we have in understanding what's going on economically. So we've seen precipitous declines in our economic activity in the end of March and April and May. And now that we're starting to get to a safe restart, I think we can understand better where we're at, but continue to be really challenged with the possibility of making projections, which would normally be something we'd be trying to do.
So what's the point of what you will deliver on July 8th?
Well, I think there's an important point. I think it's very important for us to not only be transparent about the investments we've made on behalf of Canadians and into businesses to support Canadians, but also to give people a sense of where we see the underlying economy. It is very much a snapshot, as we've been calling it, and it's telling us where we are today. It gives us the frame for the next steps, but we're not able to say where we'll be with certainty because obviously our economy is very much following our health outcomes.
So the Prime Minister mentioned that there won't be, and you reiterated just now, long-term projections. So we're not going to be seeing, let's say, 2 years from now what you anticipate the bottom line to be. But there will be months. He used the term months. Can you be specific with our audience? What should we expect? Will we see projections, through the end of this year?
Well, we certainly will be trying to give a frame of what we see 2020 looking like. That's important. Obviously, there will be a sense of estimation in what's going to happen during the rest of the year because we continue to make investments on behalf of Canadians. And those investments, you heard us yesterday talk about extending the emergency response benefit, the CERB. Those investments are because we're not yet at a stage where the economy is back to a normal functioning economy, and so that will continue.
I do want to ask you about those investments, but first I just want to make sure I ask very specifically and explicitly, will there be revised deficit projections in the snapshot that your government provides?
I do expect that we'll be able to give a sense of where we are right now, and that would include the underlying economic situation. It would include how much we've spent, and it will give a sense of what we're thinking for this year. Again, not knowing with certainty what will happen in the rest of the year, but that will provide the framework for understanding the current deficit.
I take your point on the uncertainty right now. It is as uncertain as it gets. But we've interviewed a number of people like Kevin Page on this show, the former budget watchdog, parliamentary budget officer. The current PBO has put out a range of projections. The opposition says you can present, a range as well. I take the point that things are uncertain, but couldn't you say, hey, a year from now we expect to be between here and here? Why not be that transparent?
Well, I think that there's a question really, Vashi, about false precision. We want to make sure that people have confidence that we are presenting what we know and not assuming what we don't know. You saw last week that the OECD, in putting out their estimates, put out two separate projections because they acknowledged that there's different possibilities and they couldn't really get to any one final sense. So we will look at exactly how we can best present this in the next few weeks before we give Canadians an understanding, and that analysis will inform what we actually do present.
Why couldn't you just do what the OECD does?
Well, we're going to take a look at what we think we can present fairly and make sure that not only people can have confidence in our numbers, that also it provides a good basis for moving forward. So I would just say, Vashi, stay tuned for July 8th and you'll have a much better sense of what we're able to present.
Let me ask you about those investments that you touched on and the financial aid programs, because I do think that's where so many people watching tonight are really interested to know. Will this snapshot, for example, detail or illuminate Canadians on how your government plans to proceed with a program like CERB beyond the extension that you announced tomorrow, so beyond the end of this summer?
I think what we'll aspire to do is to make sure that anything that we've committed to, anything that we think is coming, including how long it's going to go, is actually part of what we present to Canadians. So since we can't know where we'll be from a health standpoint in the end of August, or for that matter in October, we can't presume to know the numbers that will come from there. But we will make our best estimate based on what we know today on how long those programs will go to. What we announced yesterday is that we expect the CERB will go for another 8 weeks, and during that time period, obviously, we hope that many people will be able to find jobs. And then we're going to be looking carefully at how we manage the transition to the employment insurance system. So those things will be incorporated in our financial understanding, and we're looking forward to giving people a good appreciation of the kinds of things we've done. I mean, the way I look at it is the federal government has taken on debt so that Canadians don't need to take on debt. That's really what we've done, and Canadians will understand the magnitude of that investment on their behalf when we come forward on July 8th.
So based on what you just said, and based on the information you have before you now, is it the government's intention to continue the CERB for an additional 8 weeks and then transition everyone who still needs it onto EI? Like, you don't plan on extending CERB beyond that? Is that accurate?
Our plan right now is to extend the CERB benefit for 8 weeks. What we're obviously going to continue to look at is how the labor force is progressing, and we need to make sure our programs are aligned with the labor force challenges. And then, of course, we need to find a way to get back onto the employment insurance system. So there's work that we've been doing in the background to make sure that all of the systems that we have in place that support Canadians are able to function in a new normal. So that's continuing important work. And what we're going to continue to do is to find a way to support Canadians during this time. And also, what we've also said is that the wage subsidy, which is helping businesses to keep people employed, is something that we're also extending. And so we're looking at the approach to doing that will have the best impact. So all of that will be incorporated in our financial snapshot for Canadians.
Does that mean when it comes to the wage subsidy that you'll announce, I know the consultation period just ended, on how the parameters might change going forward during the extension. Will those be announced on July 8th? And I'm asking, of course, because the uptake on the wage program, it's only about a seventh of what you estimated you would dole out, has been doled out, is not great. So do you anticipate July 8th will be the day that you announce how that program changes?
Well, first of all, let me challenge what you just said. I mean, we have about 1 out of 7 Canadians are employed by a company that's gone on to the wage subsidy. So that's of working Canadians. So it is progressing. It's fair to say that we expect that more and more companies will come on board the wage subsidy, especially as we've lengthened the time period. So we will definitely be looking to provide more information on that. I don't have a date yet on when we're going to announce that. We're still doing some work on how the policy should actually look, and that's important to try and get right. We will, however, like we've done with all the programs during this crisis period, be considering how we change and adapt to properly address the challenges in the programs that are meant to support people. So that work will, when it's finished, we'll be able to announce where we're going. And as I say, I don't have a date yet, but we want to get people information so they can make decisions.
Respectfully, Minister, I take your point and your challenge there. I guess I would sort of counter-challenge you in that, I think the efficacy of some of the programs that you've put forth deserves to be questioned. The CERB, no question, has benefited, 8 million Canadians, certainly, and millions of them still continue to need it. But the wage subsidy program, yes, there has been uptake, $14 billion, for example, more than 400,000 businesses, but that isn't what you anticipated. You anticipated 1 million would apply. The commercial rent program, for example, you set aside $3 billion, only $39 million as of last week had been utilized, and we keep hearing from business owners as well as landlords saying that it is not effective. What are you going to do to fix those? And does your government need to be a little bit quicker when it comes to responding?
I think what we're going to continue to do is what we've done all along. So as we see the need for changes or improvements in the programs we put out, we're going to move forward with those. So what we expect will continue to be the case is that there'll be an uptick in the number of organizations that use both the wage subsidy program. And as I've said, we've in our consultations heard some important things that we know we might change that will actually make it possible for more businesses to potentially be on it. And similarly, around the emergency rent program, we've seen a large number of companies come forward now in the last little while looking at this. And it's because over the weeks that we've been in this period, and I would remind you that it's weeks, we've seen changes, and those changes include provincial changes that in the case of the rent program are critically important since it's a provincial jurisdiction. So Vash, I'm not going to counter argue with you, but what I can say is that this is a pretty dynamic crisis that we're in. We are making new policies as we go along, and we're improving them, changing them as we go along. I think the wage subsidy will be critically important for employers to keep their employees attached to them and to provide them with a bridge to get through this time period. We will make improvements with that goal in mind.
On the commercial rent program, the genesis of my questioning is very genuine. I constantly am hearing from, and I know that you're saying that you are being responsive, and it's true, the provinces finally, most of them have decided to issue commercial rent evictions. And I know it's not just on the feds, but right from the start, they were telling us this isn't going to work. It's predicated on the landlords participating. They have to agree to take a cut. I do think that the question is genuine. Like, walk down Sussex, half the businesses are gone there right now. Small businesses, I know you've issued credit, I know you've tried to help there, but for a lot of them, it's not been enough.
Well, we're going to continue to think about how we can support businesses. That's one program of many. You'll know that this is a jurisdiction that's provincial, so I've been pushing the provinces literally weekly in my conversations with them. And the decisions that the provinces, a couple provinces in particular, have taken on limiting evictions have literally been within the last week. So it's a pretty dynamic situation. We do need to continue to think about how we can support businesses. The emergency business account, that loan for small businesses, has been particularly important. And with over 660,000 of those loans now out, those $40,000 loans, businesses do have that level of support. We do need to consider whether there's additional things that we can do, and one of them, as I mentioned, will be the wage subsidy that will consider some of the issues that can improve that program. So we're going to stay with this approach, Vashi. I'm not wedded to exactly what we've done originally. We're trying to improve it, and in some cases, and especially with rent, it will be very much collaborative with the provinces because it's not an area of federal jurisdiction.
Okay, I'll leave it there. I'm out of time. Thank you, Minister Morneau. Appreciate your time.
Okay, well, thanks very much.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.